By the way, what is a flanker? This is RamView. Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the July 10th, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. So sorry for the hiccup there. I think my tech stuff up here is showing me there was a hiccup at the start, so you might have missed the opening. So I dropped out there. What was a flanker? Does anyone know what a flanker is? You don't hear that anymore. In fact, I remember having a football card or two that listed the wide receiver, not as a wide receiver, but as a flanker. I think the Browns' Fair Hooker was listed as a flanker. So I'm curious to know if you guys still know what a flanker is. I'd love to talk about that just a little bit. But we've got some Ram stuff going on, some ridiculous speculation, I think. And then, of course, around the NFL and other places, news with the U.S. Olympic team. I did watch some Colin Cowherd today. He was back, and I was surprised by something he said. And, of course, this is Brandi Chastain Day, so I might take off my shirt and throw it around. We're going to take a look at the Cardinals in week 2, and then we got on this day in Ram history. Well, we'll be talking some Bernie Casey, some Norris Weiss, some Harold Green, Brian Dowling, Akeem Ayers, and the late Bill Munson. We have made a decision that we are going to be on the air tomorrow, because if I don't go on the air tomorrow, it'll be more than a week before I'm back on the air again, at least how I view it. I am at camp next week, July 15th through the 19th, and I won't be able to go live on Friday because I'll be on the road. So we're going to do another show tomorrow at 5. I don't know if I'm having any new Rams information. It may be more fan view than Ram view, but it's okay because I've been flirting with doing a fan view show, which is just a generic sports show anyway. So here we go. Looking at the numbers, I added this up. I started this, I think, late last week. 86 people on the Rams roster currently, give or take. 43 of them are from the Southeastern Conference or from Southern schools. Thought that was interesting. Out of the 86 players on the roster, only 6 players are currently over the age of 30, which I thought was kind of funny because I have been watching a little more sports talk and sports shows this week just because things have been a little bit slow. And the guy that was replacing Cowherd said that the Rams were an older team. And I thought, man, you're on national TV and this is your job. And he works as a sports talk show host in Chicago full time. And he actually said the Rams are an older team. Help me, please. 6 out of the Rams' 86 players are over 30. So then I thought, how many of the current players on the roster, the 86-man roster, are UDFAs, undrafted free agents? Now, granted, that number climbs after the draft and before the first cuts, so it's a tad bit inflated. But the Rams have made a living off of bringing in undrafted free agents. Darius Williams was one, Alaric Jackson, Troy Reeder. So how many of these guys on the roster right now are undrafted free agents? 37 of the 86 players on the Rams roster are undrafted free agents. Among them, Darius Williams, Troy Reeder, who you might think that's crazy, but Troy Reeder played 49 snaps in Super Bowl 56. Christian Roseboom, who was one of the starting linebackers last year, Alaric Jackson, left tackle, Ronnie Rivers, who's given the Rams some clicks, Jake Hummel, linebacker, special teams guy, and I'm not really crazy to mention it, but undrafted free agent tackle Grant Miller, when Alaric Jackson went down on Monday night in Cincinnati. Grant Miller is the one that filled in for Alaric Jackson, And McVay loved Grant Miller so much he gave him no help against Trey Hendrickson. And unfortunately, that was the last time Grant Miller played last year. But yeah, just thinking about that on the Rams roster, 37 of the 86 are undrafted free agents. It'll be interesting to see how many make the team. And of course, the bulk of them will be probably on the practice squad. Another thing I saw as I was scrounging around, and I have to admit, I didn't read the entire article because I was so put off by the premise. Was it Turf Show Times or Ramblin' Fans? And usually I don't have any complaints about other sites, but they were speculating, and I understand it's desperate dead period material time. They were speculating on who the Rams would sign as a replacement for Matthew Stafford. And besides listing the quarterback for Texas A&M third, possibly Stetson Bennett as a bridge guy, they listed Dak Prescott as a free agent, possibly if he doesn't re-sign with the Cowboys, as somebody that come to the Rams for Matthew Stafford. Can I just say something? I wouldn't want us to spend the money for Dak Prescott. I'd rather go with Stetson Bennett for a year and suffer and get a better draft pick. That was the most ridiculous idea or notion I'd ever heard. I don't think somebody like Sean McVay could stomach having a Dak Prescott and how off target he is so often as his quarterback, unless he really had to, unless we went through another thing like we did in 2022. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to admit it. But Dak Prescott as a replacement for Matthew Stafford, I understand desperate dead period material, but that was insane. All right, around the NFL and other places, I see some questions piling up, guys. I will get to them here in a minute, guys. I promise. Thank you for piling them up. Thank you for being with me on this hot day. Thank you for putting up with the background sounds. The door to the Ram Cave is open. My lighting is better, but I decided I didn't want to drench my shirt or drown my shirt. So last night I caught up with Giants Hard Knocks off-season, or off-season Giants Hard Knocks on HBO. Hey, at this time of year with everything slow, it was interesting. It was interesting. But I will tell you, it felt like they didn't have enough content. It was like maybe somebody should have thought this out as they started putting it together, because I felt it started to drag. Even the stuff with Joe Shane, the GM, which I loved, but it felt like the content was just being repeated over and over again. And then they get to the combine, and I don't know what Xavier Worthy setting the record in the 40 has to do with Giants off-season football, right? And they stayed on that subject forever because I think they were just stressing over, we committed ourselves to this off-season stuff, and they just didn't have any content. So I watched it. It was okay. It was all right. I know what Hard Knocks is these days. It's more like Soft Knocks. But I also, one of the things I just sat there watching was the fretting over Saquon Barkley. I'm going to admit it. He's probably going to go to Philadelphia and run for 10,000 yards this year. If that happens, again, I'll come out and say I was wrong. But Saquon Barkley, I'm sorry. The guy was drafted in 2018. There's a lot of mileage on those tires there. And I think he's just okay. I think he's a good back. But, when Josh Jacobs is playing well, I think Josh Jacobs is just as good as Saquon Barkley. I don't get the fretting over Saquon Barkley. And I think Shane made the right call, although I thought it was funny when he said to Saquon, we're going to let you test the market and but I'll take you at your word that you're going to come back and give us a chance to match. And then Saquon, you hear his voice over the phone say, well, what did I tell you? I always want to be. And the dude was gone. You could hear it in Barkley's voice that he was gone. I'll let one of you correct me. Did they get a third round comp pick for that signing going to Philly? Did they get a comp pick for that? I'll take the comp pick. They're better off without Saquon. You could fill that running back slot. And Joe Shane was right. We got to build our offensive line. Build your offensive line. And, oh, by the way, build your offensive line. So as I was breaking that down, I was thinking about this last night. From 1971 up through to the early 90s, the Rams had one of the best offensive lines every year in football. Now, actually, from about 65 through 91, they had one of the best offensive lines in football. Willie Ellison, Lawrence McCutcheon, Wendell Tyler, Charles White, and Greg Bell were not first-round picks of the club. White and Bell were first-round picks, but they were pretty much cast-offs. Wendell Tyler, I believe, was a third-round pick. McCutcheon second. I'm not even sure where Willie Ellison was. Dick Bass had 2,000-yard seasons in the 60s for the Rams, but he was a first-round pick. Dickerson was a first-round pick, and Cleveland Gary was a first-round pick, and he got 1,000 yards one season for the Rams. I'm not really looking at Falk, Jackson Davis, or Gurley because those are from different eras, but the idea that some of these backs were able to get 1,000-yard rushers is because of the offensive line, and you can find your back. The harder thing to do is settle your offensive line, and I'm so glad the Rams did that this offseason. And it got me thinking back a long time ago. I got this game called Front Page Sports by Sierra or something, and it was a kind of a DVD, something CD-ROM that you put in your computer and ate a lot of space and everything. But it was a football game, and you could play the football game, but it was mostly a simulation game. And I simulated 18 seasons in that league, and I ended up winning 7 titles without manipulation against the computer. And I created the fictional Portland Beavers team in a league, right? But every year, what I did was with my first or second round draft pick, no matter what happened, is I drafted offensive linemen. And I won 7 titles, and I was probably in the playoffs 12 times. Because that was always what I did. And Joe Shane was right. Get rid of those running backs. Don't invest in those running backs. Invest in your Bubbas up front. I know it sounds horrible to say right now, but what the Rams are putting into their offensive line, believe it or not, even Blake Corum as well as Kyron Williams, they're kind of all disposable, right? They're all, unfortunately, that's just the way it works. They're all disposable. If you come across a Steven Jackson, that's different. But Saquon Barkley can't even carry Steven Jackson's jockstrap, right? And when you come across a Steven Jackson, then you make a move. You do whatever you can to keep him. A Todd Gurley in his prime, you do what you can to keep him. Saquon Barkley's not even Todd Gurley in his prime. So there you go. A little bit of Ram talk there and around the NFL. In other places, Kawhi Leonard found out that the Olympic team practices every day and they wouldn't do load management for the practices. So he opted out and was replaced by the Celtics' Derek White. Was it Jaylen Brown for the Celtics? I'm probably butchering his name again, but I would say Jalen Fields. Jaylen Brown, the MVP of the NBA Finals. They didn't replace him with him. They replaced him with Derek White. I thought that was interesting. But Kawhi Leonard bailed. Is that hilarious or what? Right? It's like, he wants to get ready for next season or whatever and stuff, but I'm going to guess with Kawhi Leonard, there were just too many back-to-back practices, and he needed the load management. News came out today that Nike is losing big bucks and they're laying off a bunch of people. I don't buy Nike anymore, but to tell you the truth, I don't buy Adidas or anything else. When I was playing ball, I bought the coolest ones. I think the last cool shoes I ever bought were Magic Johnson and Bird. They sold the weapons. I don't even know who made those. I don't think they were Nike. I never bought Air Jordans. I think the last pair I bought out of necessity was when Converse. They had some Chuck Taylors that were leather, and I bought some Chuck Taylors. They were black. They were kind of cool, and I think I had them for like 10 years because I wasn't playing ball 7 days a week anymore. But Nike kind of authors its own issues, and there's so many other options out there. Why give me a reason to hate you or not like you? Nike is so preachy, right? I mean, come on. I don't preach that much on a Sunday morning than Nike does. So they're suffering some losses. In other places as well, I thought it was interesting. Colin Cowherd was back today, and yes, I watched him because I was looking for stuff. And he says the Lakers drafted Bronny as a favorite of LeBron because LeBron's been good to them. So in a backhanded way, Cowherd confirms that Bronny didn't deserve to be drafted, that his drafting was only a favor to LeBron. Is that hilarious? It was a poor analogy he made about his expectation that in America, someone does something for you, you got to do something back for them. And I agree to that, right? I might give preference to somebody I know. If Mr. Tim Burns here, who's always on, takes a cheap shot at me, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Or he says something crazy, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of personal integrity, right? And And I think there is a point where people won't help somebody out if it's about personal integrity. And this was a case where the Lakers said, hey, LeBron, we love you, but we can't smile on this, with some personal integrity in place. We are not going to draft your son. But there is no personal integrity in Lakerland, and they did draft Bronny's son. And Colin Cowherd himself, the most talented voice in sports behind a microphone, he confirmed it today. The Lakers did LeBron a favor, and they drafted his son not because of his talent, but because he's LeBron's son. Man, that's just bad look. Also, before we go to break here, today is Brandi Chastain Day. On this day, what was that? 99? Was that like 25 years ago? The women's won the World Cup, and Brandi Chastain, she kicked the winning goal, and she tore off her top and had her sports bra on, and it's an iconic thing. Actually, I'd forgotten her name. I was at a trivia thing with my daughter when she was just out of college. It was in her neighborhood. Her and her roommate used to go to, and they had sports questions there. My daughter asked me to come and be on their team one night, and so I wanted to stay close to my daughter. I went, and Brandi Chastain was one of the answers, and I knew it wasn't Mia Hamm. Everyone was saying Mia Hamm, and I couldn't remember Brandi Chastain's name, and I did. And boy, did I look good in front of my daughter and her friends. So that was a pretty special moment. So thank you, Brandi Chastain, for wearing your sports bra in front of all of America. I'm Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I do RamView. It's one of the founding guys at Mid-Valley Sports. Those guys are still in the room, Tim and Dwayne. They cover the Chargers in the NFL. I do RamView. I get to talk about the Rams thanks to our sponsor at Kistler Law. And please check them out. If you have an auto need, you've been hit in an accident, have questions to ask, trust me, I know. Check out Kistler Law. Also, I write books. And so between Kistler Law and my books, which are available on Amazon, you can support me in this. And they also support me in my day job. I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. And we have a channel right here on YouTube, Burbank Faith Virtual, which you can check us out there if you have any questions, want to know my backstory. But Burbank Faith Virtual here, burbankfaithvirtual.com, Burbank Faith Virtual on Facebook and all across social media. And that's me and stuff. And so I guess you could say I'm not co-vocational, I'm tri-vocational. There you go. I'll try anything. There we go. Thanks, guys, for clicking on and hanging out with me today. JD Durham, thank you for clicking on, man. I do appreciate that. Bill, Rams have the best scouting department in the NFL. You know what's so interesting about that too, Bill, is when you share that, it's interesting because when Brad Holmes left after the 2020 season, there was some speculation that he was the talent in that Rams collective, in that scouting department. And you know what? Brad Holmes is talented. He has built that Detroit team. But they are more than just one person, and you're right. The Rams have developed an excellent scouting department. Willie Bowen, shout out to Woody Strode, former LA Rams tight end. I loved Willie Strode, and I loved him even better when I found out he was a Ram. Of course, I knew him as an actor first. I saw him in this movie called The Last Voyage or something. He's a crew hand helping to free a mom that's trapped after an explosion. I think it was based on the Andrea Doria. And I thought Willie Strode was cool. And then I found out he was a Ram. I thought, man, that's even cooler. So, yeah, I'll take a shout out to Woody Strode. JD Durham, McVay isn't that stupid. I think we're referring to the idea of going with Dak Prescott. Yeah, I don't think so either. Thank you, JD, for agreeing with me on that one. Willie Bowen, Les Snead would never make a trade for Stafford for Dak Prescott. I think they were speculating Prescott would end up coming over as a free agent. But do you really see the Rams giving 60 rocks, which is the neighborhood that Prescott expects to be living in with his next contract? Do you think the Rams are going to give 60 rocks to Dak Prescott? Please bring back Jared Goff, right? Bill, the Rams scouting department gives the Rams the ability to trade the first and second round picks to get established players. Yeah, I do believe we are back in that realm, right? I think, if depending on what the window looks like, what the needs are coming into the trading deadline, could we be back for another round of blank them picks? Could we be back in that season? I think that's definitely a possibility. And if it gets you a ring, right, and some bragging rights over the 40, could you imagine if the Rams go back to the Super Bowl again and the Rams win another Super Bowl before the 49ers even get back there with their window closing? The pain in Friscoville, would be marvelous, right? I would be like the six-fingered man, in Princess Bride. I would think that's the worst thing I ever heard. How marvelous would it be for the 49ers to suffer that? That would be great. JD Durham agrees. JD Durham, totally the opposite of the Niners O-line. And we're talking about the offensive line there. JD, I agree with you. That 49ers offensive line is high risk. Big payoff with Trent Williams. But if Trent Williams goes down, man, oh man, there's not going to be any joy in Friscoville if anything happens to Trent Williams, who's been remarkably healthy the last 2 seasons. Christian McCaffrey, who's been remarkably healthy the last 2 seasons. George Kittle, who was very healthy not very, but he was healthy last season, but he wasn't much of an impact in the Super Bowl, was he? And yet Brock Purdy had him at the brink. Bill, watch the Rams and Lions playoff game. Red zone offense and the lack of pressure of the quarterback killed them. Did they address this? Yeah, right. Those are exactly the things. We know the kicker issue, right? But there was a time, 3 trips inside the red zone. I think we came away with field goals. There was a stretch there where McVay kind of lost faith in the ability to move Aleem McNeil and that Detroit front, and they passed when they probably should have kept pounding it. And I think Jonah Jackson is an answer to that. I think Blake Corum is an answer to that. I think moving Steve Avila to center is an answer to that. And so I think they've addressed those things. And of course, Jared Verse and even Braden Fisk, those are answers, because I think we were all talking about it late last year that the Rams, the one thing they were missing down the stretch was that one extra guy who can go get the quarterback, right? We knew they were double and triple teaming Aaron Donald, and Kobe Turner stepped up. Byron Young stepped up, but we needed that other piece, and I think they went out and invested in it this offseason. So I think the Rams have addressed those issues. Willie Bowen, I love the Fila sneakers. That's funny. Yeah, you know what? I don't buy Nike anymore. I think I live in New Balance. I got some shoes on right now. I got them at the New Balance outlet store. I don't even know who does what anymore. I remember when I was a kid, it was Chucks, right? Everyone wore Chucks. I wore Pony. My high school basketball team, we wore Pony. I had Pro Keds, and then I got into some Nike for a while. And again, I got the weapons, and I don't remember if those were Adidas or not. And then I went to the leather Chucks later on. But man, I remember when you're younger, you had no bills to pay, no kid, no girlfriend. Well, you dated, but you didn't have a regular girlfriend to take out all the time. And you're playing ball 7 days a week, man, you had so much chump change. You had so much what you used to call scratch to just spend. Willie Bowen, LaFlop is trash. I do believe you're talking about the Lakers there and LeBron James. JD Durham, never would have thought that nepotism in the NBA. Yeah, and everyone's crying that, everyone does this in America, right? Well, generally in a sport on your team, on a limited roster, you are going after the best player that you could possibly get to let your team win. Whether it's been a good deal or a bad deal, Jerry Buss turned to Jeannie and Jim and them because they were his kids. They weren't going to be on the court, right? That maybe who's he going to hand it off to? It's the family business. You don't hand your family business off to a stranger, right? And you run that risk, just like the telepreachers. They run that risk when they hand it off to family. And they pay the price. But in the NBA, this is a roster spot. This isn't about someone becoming a VP. This is about someone becoming your starting off guard. No personal integrity there enough to say no to LeBron. Instead, they did him a favor. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Willie Bowen, the Santa Clara 49ers, Levi Stadium. I was there when it was Great America. I think they built that where Great America used to be, or the parking lot of Great America is. Manny Correa, what's up? Manny and Willie saying hi to each other. All right. Did you ever wear Puma sneakers? I don't think I ever had Pumas. Did I have a pair of Pumas? Maybe I did early on. Maybe I did have a pair of Pumas. That's a good question, man. That's a good question. All right, let's look at Rams update here. Who are they playing week 2? We had a nice breakdown. I put it on the Rams rules site, tried to get some feedback, and most of the belief is the Rams will win opening night in Detroit. A few of them were thinking they could lose. I think there was also some line of thought that I kind of agreed with, was the Rams could lose but learn from it, in the sense that they'll have some film and some place to land if they see Detroit in the postseason. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I also didn't want them getting amped up for game 1 and then be thinking about game 3 and overlooking game 2 opponent, the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are the week 2 opponent, September 15th in Arizona. They were 4-13 last year, but they really played hard for new head coach Jonathan Gannon. Vegas projects them at 6.5 this year. They have home games against the Bears, Lions, Patriots, Jets, Texans, Chargers, and of course Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks. Their away games are against the Packers, the Vikings, the Dolphins, the Panthers, and of course the Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks. And in week 1, the Cardinals will be going to Buffalo to play the Bills, and then they'll be traveling back for their home opener against the Rams. So they will have a significant opponent in week 1 that could bang them up a little bit. So that would be pretty interesting to see, how do they fare after their game in Buffalo and the Rams also being in Detroit. So that's something to think about. Jonathan Gannon is their head coach. Second year, they played really hard, even though it was 4 wins. It was a different looking Cardinal team last year. They actually beat Dallas at home. And so they played hard. There was no gimmies there with the Cardinals. And their offensive coordinator is Drew Petzing. He's in his second year. Their defensive coordinator is Nick Raylis. He's in his second year, and he's only going to be turning 31 in about a week or so, in a couple days. So they are a young coaching staff. Quarterback is Kyler Murray. His backups are Desmond Ridder and Clayton Tune. So, they got some experience there backing up Kyler Murray in case he goes down again. Their offensive line, draft pick last year, was Paris Johnson, going to Evan Brown, Hajalte Froholt, Will Hernandez, and the former Bengal, Jonah Williams, was acquired. Jonah Williams was graded 59th out of 81 for tackles last year. Paris Johnson was 57 out of 81 in his rookie year. We expect him to be better. Their running backs, James Conner, has always been a thorn in the Rams' side if he's healthy. And they had a guy that stepped up last year, rushed for about 500 yards, Imari DiMercato out of TCU. I do believe he was an undrafted free agent 2 years ago. And they drafted Trey Benson, the former FSU guy, running back, in the 3rd round, late 3rd round, early in the 3rd round. They drafted Trey Benson. And, of course, wide receiver Marvin Harrison, route runner Michael Wilson from Stanford was there last year. Greg Dortch, and so they've got some pieces there in the quarterback room, in the wide receiver room. And then Trey McBride has stepped up offensively. He's the tight end. On defense, they run a 34, and that's where their problems are going to be. They got Zaven Collins, who's the number 1 pick a couple of years ago, back in 2021. He only has 6 sacks in his career. He's in his 4th season. He had 4 sacks last year, career high, and not one came after week 8. The opposite number on the other side is Dennis Gardick. He's an undrafted free agent. He had 6 sacks last year, but only 2 after week 4. So they got some problems getting to the quarterback. Defensive line, they got Roy Lopez, Justin Jones, Belial Nichols, and they drafted Darius Robinson in the 1st round. He was their second first-round pick. At 6'5", 296, some projected him as an edge, but he looks more like a defensive end if those numbers are true, 6'5", 296. He looks like a hand-in-the-dirt guy. We'll see how that plays out. At linebacker, Kaiser White, the former Charger, played for Gannon with the Eagles. He was okay last year, and then they bring in Mac Wilson from New England. At corner, they got Sean Murphy-Bunting, who won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers a few years ago, and he's kind of an ordinary guy right now. Garrett Williams, who had the knee injury his senior year in Syracuse, was a 3rd-round pick, hit the field the back half last year. And then they drafted Max Melton out of Rutgers, in the second round. So they did something to improve their secondary. I don't know if it's enough. I do like their safeties, Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson, another undrafted free agent that played well for them out of Washington State. So their safeties are okay. They had 7 picks in the first 100, 9 picks in the first 150. So the Cardinals, I think they've got it kind of right. I think what they're doing is a slow build. I think, they'll be competitive this year because I'm not a Kyler Murray fan, but he can make a splash play, and he has some talent on that offensive side, especially in Marvin Harrison, where he can hurt you. But on a continuous basis, I don't think so. I think this team could play up to 7 wins, 8 wins this year. I really do. And I think I'm kind of fearful of the Cardinals. Once they get another season behind them and another draft class in, I think they could be a threat in 2025, because I think by 2025, we're going to see the 49ers take a step back, and then we're going to find out about the Seahawks. And if there's anybody that's going to get in the way of that Rams Super Bowl window within the NFC West by 2025 and 2026, I think it could be the Cardinals. And I kind of hope Kyler Murray stays their quarterback, because I'm just not a Kyler Murray believer, at least not yet. So those are my thoughts. I think the Rams win this game. Again, my fear is focused on Detroit, thinking about the home opener in week 3 against Frisco, that they could overlook this team. And if they overlook this team, they're going to get stung, and that one could hurt as the season goes along. You need to get those wins you're supposed to get in the NFL. All right. I think we got that in there. We're at the 31-minute mark. And I think we're good. All right. I see some questions piling up here. Let me look at the questions before we go to this date in Rams history. I was asked if I wore Pumas. No, I don't. JD Durham. Connor is really good. He really is. He is really good. He's kind of a beast, and he hurts the Rams. The only thing you can think about, sometimes he gets a flat tire. Sometimes he's out for a game or two. But James Conner is no one to mess around with. Willie Bowen, I'm praying for victories against Detroit, Minnesota 49ers, and all the New York teams. Hey, I'm for all of them. All of them. JD Durham mentioning Marvin Harrison, absolutely. Manuel Correa, I'm a Puma guy. Bill, did you watch Flipper Anderson record-setting game against the Saints? I will never forget that one. Anderson was so smooth. Yeah, I was. Sunday night game, and that was the game. I think I brought it a couple weeks ago. I think that was the game Dalton Hilliard went up to block Kevin Green, and Kevin Green just kind of jumped right over them and made the play in the backfield. That was when everything was bright and rosy with that Ram team. Zampese was the OC. Everett was still Jim Everett, and you're running Pete Holohan out there as an option, along with Flipper Anderson and Henry Ellard, Greg Bell in the backfield. I remember being so optimistic for those Rams teams in 88 and 89. And then Flipper, of course. Yeah, 336. It was amazing. He just kept chalking up catches. And that was when the Saints weren't a joke. I think that was Jim Mora Sr.'s Saints squad. Were they running Bobby Hebert out there still? And that's when they had that linebacking core of Ricky Jackson, Pat Swilling, Sam Mills, and was it Vaughn Johnson or Vaughn Dunbar was the other inside linebacker. They had some serious talent there. And I always hated playing in New Orleans because the Rams always played down to the Saints. But, yeah, I'll never forget that. Let's see, Manuel Correa. Jim Everett was my favorite quarterback. Jim Everett was – I wanted him to be my favorite quarterback. I did. We had high hopes. But after the NFC title game, after the 89 season, it just wasn't the same. Something changed. And I made the analogy, I think, a couple months ago. It was like Jim Everett reminded me, after the 89 season, reminded me of Jared Goff after the 2018 season. 2019 and 2020, Jared Goff did not look like the 2017 and 2018 Jared Goff. And Jim Everett in 1990 and going forward did not look like the Jim Everett of 1988 and 1989. I think one of those years he threw 31 touchdown passes. And he didn't look the same. I don't know. What do you say? He didn't look the same. All right. I'm not going to hate on him, but That's where we go. Willie Bowen, Jim Everett is an amazing quarterback for the LA Rams. When you're coming off of Steve Dills, a broke down Bartkowski, Dieter Brock, a game manager in Jeff Kemp. Yeah, okay. Jim Everett was an amazing quarterback for the Rams. Couple of things that came up now that you mentioned that on Vince Ferragamo, a guy named Youngblood, he's on Rams Rule. He brought up a couple things about Ferragamo. We were talking about how I said in 83, he didn't look right in 83. And then, of course, they moved him after the 84 season. And what contributed to some of his struggles in 83 was a web tear between his hand and his finger between fingers that kind of limited him that season. And then in 84, he broke a finger. So appreciate Youngblood for pointing that out to me. Also, he did point out also that the John Williams, acquiring of John Williams was a free agent signing, and that's why it was a number 1 pick. So good stuff there. I love it when someone comes in, straightens me out. That's good stuff. Bill, Chris Miller wasn't, Chris Miller, if we could have gotten him back in 87 or 88 when the Falcons drafted him, he was born on my birthday, August 9th, out of Pomona, played at Oregon. They could have gotten him early on before all those concussions. They might have had something, but they didn't. I didn't dislike Chris Miller. I just wasn't into Chris Miller by the time the Rams got him. All right, you guys keep throwing those questions out there, and we'll keep answering as best we can. On this date, we're going to be on tomorrow, so we're not going to do a July the 11th. So we're going to be on tomorrow. We're not going to be on Friday. Tomorrow will be kind of RamView, FanView, as we talk a little bit more about general sports, because unless there's any new breaking news on the Rams. But on July the 10th, 1967, the Rams acquired Bernie Casey from the Falcons for a guy named Tom Moore. And I'm going to Tom Moore some other time. But Casey played for the Falcons, played for the 49ers, went to the Falcons, I think in the expansion draft, not sure. 6'4", 215, flanker, played at Bowling Green, caught 359 passes in 8 NFL seasons, only went to 1 Pro Bowl, and that was after the 1967 season with the Rams, where he caught 53 passes, averaged 16.4 yards per catch, scored 8 touchdowns, caught the touchdown pass that beat Green Bay in the regular season in 67. In 2 seasons with the Rams, he caught 82 passes for 13 touchdowns and over 1,400 yards. And in fact, his numbers dropped in 68, his last year, but he averaged 19 and a half yards per catch in that 67 season. And Bernie Casey, a lot like Willie Strode, is one of those guys. He's the actor, Bernie Casey, right? I saw him in the movie Gargoyles. I saw him in other stuff. I go, oh, that's the Bernie Casey that played for the Rams. And you come to know that later on. But Bernie Casey was a pretty special player, a little ahead of his time with his size and everything. But I always thought it was interesting that he was listed as a flanker. And that was a great question that I thought we'd throw out there. Does anyone remember what a flanker was? And I was taught what a flanker was early on. A flanker is Lenny Moore. And if you ever watch Greatest Sports Legends, that's where I first got introduced to Lenny Moore, the former Colt great halfback flanker who they used in the passing game quite a bit. He was also an established running back. But he played flanker a lot. And flanker was the guy that lined up off the line of scrimmage, just behind the line of scrimmage. He wouldn't be considered the slot now. I don't know what they would call him now. Someone said a Z, but usually was a short passing game guy. Usually it was someone that could also run the ball a little bit. And little variations on that. And I'll take anything you guys know about a flanker. You don't hear it much anymore. Someone might line up as a flanker, but no one's referred to as a flanker. But I remember when Bo Jackson signed with the Raiders or came to the Raiders, and not knowing all the drama between Al Davis and Marcus Allen, I thought the perfect pairing would have been Jackson at tailback, and then turn the extremely versatile Marcus Allen into a flanker. Because he could catch the ball. He ran like a receiver, in terms of running routes. And he was so, he did so many blocks, he did so many things. And I wouldn't have made Marcus Allen a fullback for Bo Jackson. I would have made him a flanker a la Lenny Moore. In fact, I wrote a column back in the late 80s for my school newspaper And I said that's what it should be. They should make Marcus Allen some kind of flanker because I see some Looney Moore in him. But yeah, going back to Bernie Casey, yeah, he 2 years. You look at those highlights. He wore number 25 for the Rams. Man, that guy a little early, right? If he had come out, been born 20 years later, the guy would have been really well remembered. He was acquired by the Rams on this date in 1967. On this date in 1971, the Rams sent a backup center named George Berman to the Redskins for a 4th-round pick that became the 99th overall in 1974. Berman is often said to be the first long snapper, and of course, he did it for George Allen. He played for George Allen when he was with the Rams, and he ended up retiring after the 69-70 season, and George Allen talked him to come out of retirement, but the Rams owned his rights. So another Ram, former Ram, along with all those Ramskins and later Tommy Mason and other people, was traded to the Redskins to go back to George Allen. And I thought that was pretty interesting when I got hold of that story. And the 4th-round pick was used by the Rams in January of 74. And they drafted a quarterback out of Ole Miss named Norris Weiss. Now, Norris Weiss never played for the Rams. He was there one summer, but a week before the NFL draft, it was the WFL draft, and he ended up going and played in the WFL. He played for the Hawaiian Islanders, I think. And in 75, after the league folded, he was signed by the Rams. He was there for about 5 weeks, and the Rams cut him. And then I saw him playing for the Broncos in 76, 77, 78, 79. And my brother said, oh, that guy was a Ram. And I didn't realize it, but he was. And here's the neat thing about Norris Weiss is that he was actually the guy that came in and played in Super Bowl 12. He was out of the league in 76, wasn't playing professional ball, bounced around to the WFL, cut by the Rams, and then he was playing in a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 12. Unfortunately, Norris Weiss, after his career was over, he died at a young age of 43 of bone cancer, but just something I just thought it was worth remembering. On this date, 1978, the Rams signed Yale legend quarterback Brian Dowling, who was a backup quarterback in 72 for the Patriots. It's the only other time he played any significant action. Threw one pass over the next 5 years for Green Bay, and it was incomplete. I think he's getting an NFL pension now. Good for him. Rams claimed Windland Hall, a safety. I remember him with the 49ers, kind of a backup safety behind Mel Phillips and Ralph McGill. Rams claimed him off of waivers. He didn't last too long. 1996 on this date, Rams signed a free agent running back named Harold Green. Green had been a 1,000-yard back for the Bengals in 92, even played in the Pro Bowl. He played well for the Rams in 96 and then just moved on. And born on this day in 1989, former Verbum-Day linebacker, UCLA standout linebacker Akeem Ayers. Ayers was drafted by the Titans. He played one uninspired season for the Rams in 2015 and then was cut in September of 2016. Surprisingly, I think someone shared it was more of a salary cap cut, but he never played for the Rams in Los Angeles. And then passing away on this day in the year 2000 is Bill Munson. After drafting Roman Gabriel, after drafting Terry Baker, the Rams the next year drafted Bill Munson, and he played off and on for the Rams until George Allen got there and says, what is this? This is ridiculous. We're going to start Roman Gabriel. So there we go. Got it all in. I'm proud. We got it all in there. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Samuel Ainsley, what's up? Trent Green missed opportunity. How do you phrase that with Trent Green? Isn't that amazing? Do the Rams have that run in 99 with Trent Green? I think Trent Green was a good quarterback. He wasn't Kurt Warner, though. I don't know if the Rams have that. I don't know. And that's funny thing. I made mention of today to someone after that Frisco game, the NFC title game in 89 was played in January of 1990. We know that. The Rams for the next 9 years just vanished. From 90 to 98, they were a disaster. Worst team of the decade. They were terrible. They transplanted. It was all a joke. And then they catch lightning in the bottle in 99. Of course, it's a sustainable lightning because they're good for a number of years. That's Dick Vermeil. And then there's just that weird twist of fate, almost Twilight Zone-like, where Trent Green goes down. And, no one's ever talked to Trent Green about his perspective of the whole thing, right? Just wild stuff. And Trent Green goes on to play another 10 years in the NFL. He really played well for the Chiefs, but he never got to the big game. And so yeah, that is an interesting thing there, Sam Ainsley. Thank you for bringing it up. Willie Bowen, what's your opinion of Rich Campbell, quarterback for the Rams? Rich Campbell, are you talking about the draft pick for the Packers out of Cal back in 80 or 81? I don't think he ever played for the Rams. Or are you talking about someone else, Willie? Because Rich Campbell was a major bust. I mean, he falls right in there with Jerry Taggy as far as Packer whiffs in the first round at quarterbacks, right? He was bad. Yeah, so I don't know if you're talking about someone else. I wouldn't have wanted Rich Campbell to play quarterback for the Rams. Willie Bowen, Bernie Casey, John the Hammer Slade. I'm going to get you, sucker. Yes, I saw that movie. There you go. Neil Gonzalez, what did you think of the Danny Trejo incident? Danny Trejo, was that the 4th of July thing? Did someone throw a water balloon at his car? Was that what happened? I plead ignorance on this. I don't know. Someone said that's a tradition they do in wherever the parade was. But yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you what, Neil, I'll look it up. And when I come back on the air tomorrow, because like I said, tomorrow is going to be more FanView than RamView, I'll look it up. All right. You guys have any more questions, throw them my way. We're at the 45-minute mark. We got in some good stuff. Tomorrow, we're going to mention some Tony Guillory, some Jim Purnell, some Otto Stowe. We're going to mention how the Rams acquired Vince Ferragamo. We're going to talk about the departure of Isaiah Robertson and some good stuff tomorrow for tomorrow's show. We'll be on at 5 and going there. Let's see. Danny Trejo. Oh, Danny Trejo is a big Rams fan. Danny Trejo was a big Rams fan. Okay, I did not know Danny Trejo was a big Rams fan. I wanted to go to his taco place. I got a weak spot for tacos. In fact, my wife and I talk about where we're going to retire eventually, because the truth is, it's really tough to retire here in LA, but we want to hold on as long as we can because we have this fear that wherever we move, we're going to lose and miss out on some really great tacos as well as In-N-Out Burger. So we want to be careful about what we do there. Willie Bowen, Rich Campbell was traded to the Rams. Hey, someone help me out there. I don't remember Rich Campbell being traded to the Rams. I'll look it up. I thought he bounced to the Raiders after the Packers cut him loose. 80s quarterbacks, Jeff Christensen didn't play for the Rams. Steve Fuller was there. Steve Dills, Hugh Millen. I'm trying to rattle, we had, Mark Herman, Chuck Long, Dan Pastorini, Jeff Rutledge. I do not remember Rich Campbell playing for the Rams. If that's indeed who we're talking about. Bartkowski. Yeah, I remember Bartkowski. I was excited when we got Bartkowski. I didn't realize he was done, but at the time we got signed Bartkowski, it was like Dieter Brock, Steve Bartkowski, right? We had our Dieter Brock, right? Now we get Steve Bartkowski, and of course, no overcoming those knees for Bartkowski after 11 seasons in Atlanta. TJ Rubley, a 90s quarterback. You go to the 90s quarterback, man, it's like TJ Rubley, Chris Chandler, Chris Miller. We were talking about him earlier. Steve Bono, Mark Rippon on 2 different occasions. Steve Walsh, the former Miami quarterback? Dang, the Rams ran through everybody. And then I don't want to mention a bad name here because it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. Tony Banks. A lot of people weren't happy with Tony Banks. There was a dream about Tony Banks. There was once a dream we had for Tony Banks. Is he going to be the next Shaq Harris? Yeah, didn't work. And then who was the backup for Kurt Warner in Super Bowl 34? Paul Justin, Arizona State, right? I think he had a cup of coffee with the Bears and everything. I got to admit, I was a TJ Rubley fan. Rubley, indubitably. There was a moment there I thought maybe TJ Rubley was the prehistoric Kurt Warner, but we knew that wasn't the case. Biosiah. All right, guys, I think I'm going to let you go now because I'm having too much fun. Thank you for clicking on this hot day. Stay cool, and we will see you tomorrow at 5. And if I can get on next week, I will. Running kids camp up, outside of the Ram Cave. could be kind of difficult, but we will be on the air manana. So God bless. Take care. Biozio, Bill, Willie, JD, all you guys. Manny, thank you for clicking on. We'll talk to you soon.